Yes, and then Alt-P is pause, Alt-S is stop.
Aren't you glad you got that out of your system?
We ought to get a sticky note, stick it right there that says, these are the hotkeys, because we forget them every time. I'm getting my topics up before we start.
Not for the game, mind you, just for life.
Wait, where's my topics? There they are.
These are the hotkeys. Wouldn't that be great if you just had like, here's the hotkey for actually being able to effectively wake up in the morning? Or here's a hotkey
Well, technically, depending on if you follow Andrew Huberman, there's probably some kind of...
I don't know that I'm familiar with
He's from what I don't know much about him. I believe he is a neuroscientist who has a podcast that basically describes a bunch of sort of life hacks.
Noodle.
Where he's like, these are the actual hormonal processes happening in your brain. So if you want to get yourself to wake up earlier, you can do these things, and it'll
biohacking.
It'll tweak your mentality to help you do that. I don't actually follow him well enough to speak on any definitive level, but come on, bro.
He did.
I will. I have lots of topics. I didn't even write them all down. Why does that keep happening? It's happening more now than ever.
It's not synced?
No, the
I'm
keyboard.
talking about you and your topics.
I'm synced.
You haven't synced yourself?
No.
I suppose
we're looking at the same stuff.
Kenobi
I added... Yeah, what are you thinking I'm added?
I'm curious about your hot take. Did you rewatch it for the hot take?
No, well, here's the problem.
No, you can't say it's a hot take.
No. Well, no, hot take means a take that I think will be controversial, which I imagine this will still be.
Is it, though? Typically, hot take means, like, you just came across this perspective and
no,
you just
a hot take is, like, here's my opinion.
Like, psh.
Well, no, maybe that has that context, but a hot take is, here's my opinion that's a little bit new.
Really
and a little
starting
bit...
to get annoyed with this.
Yeah, I'm going to... Hang on. I'm going to at least see if maybe it's an actual physical connection issue. See if that helps. I should rewatch the originals. Or the original, I should say. Because I suppose it's entirely possible I wasn't paying enough attention. But...
But here's my hot take anyway.
But I may be one of, like, 3 people who think the sequels are better than the first one.
Something's wrong.
That's what I mean by hot take. As in, like, whoa,
Explain.
No one wants to touch that. Explain!
It's not even that I...
Because here's the thing. This is why I need to...
disagree with you.
Well, I suppose I should rewatch it, if only because it might be that... It could either be that there are elements in the... Maybe. It could be that there are elements in the second 2 films that aren't as prevalent in the first. And so I appreciate those elements and thus I like those films more. Or maybe I just didn't catch that those elements were already in the first one and they just slipped me by. But it's not that I didn't like the first Matrix. I was just like, oh yeah, it's cool. I don't know that I understood why it was such a cultural revolution as it was. But I mean, I didn't hate it. It was just that I was kind of like, oh yeah, it's a fun... Why does he come in so stealthily?
I don't know, but I lit him up that time. So light it up.
So I imagine you're taking the perspective of the average person, which is, no, the first one's best.
Wow.
I don't mean that
specifically have that perspective. I'm just curious.
Well, do you agree with the consensus? Because I'm not suggesting that everyone else is wrong.
Here's what I would say. My gut level reaction.
Ammo. They have the guns you have, so they have the ammo you have. He's attempting to dab on you. I mean, he looks like he's doing it really uncomfortably, but... even in death, I have swag.
I
don't know if the mic is picking up. This is the couch squeaking, not my butt. What is this? Look at this pose. Oh man, you shot me for real. You did not, girlfriend.
My initial response is not specifically to defend the Matrix as a particular, specific franchise, as much as I would say, by and large, I've just found that it is a truism that the first one, because it tends to be the original thought.
Well, but this would imply that you're not critically thinking.
No.
To simply say, well, it's the first one, so usually the first one's best. That's why I think this one's best.
No. I'm not saying that must always be the case. What I'm saying is that by and large, that is the case.
But you think that it's true for this?
No.
So you agree?
I don't know that I specifically have ever considered that.
Well, then why did you act like mine was a hot take? Was it just that I said it was a hot take?
No,
you could have been like, oh, no, I agree.
Expected that particular perspective. I mean, that's a fairly odd.
It's a hot take.
That's a fairly.
I agree.
I'm just saying I've not heard that about those particular films before.
Well, I agree. I have only ever heard that the first one's good and the rest aren't great. Well, here's my this is why I'm asking you your opinion, is because I can conceive.
Defend yourself.
I can conceive if you. I was going to attempt to use you as a sounding board for like what I imagine the average person thinks. If you agreed with the average person,
to use you as a sounding board.
Well, I mean, do you agree with the general consensus that the first one's better, or do you think maybe I have a valid point? Because I was going to use you as a contrast, but if you agree, then I'll do a different strategy.
I don't... It's difficult because I feel like I would qualify slightly because on a choreographed level, I think that choreography was better in the second one than the first one. The fight sequences and things like that were actually better in the second one than the first one. I think the...
Use a wired controller to get away from connectivity issues.
Expansion of the idea of the machines.
Well, that's what I wonder.
Is better in the third one. So I go.
But see, is that why people don't like
something different?
Because here's my thoughts, and this is why. I don't know. You seem to. You keep. You don't answer my question fully.
A little bit, but it's because I don't feel like. They're each individually so different that I don't.
That was just a humor.
He just dropped so quickly. You dropped him like a bag. Oh, you dropped him like a bag of hammers.
He's going.
He's confused. They broke.
Wow! He was loaded with springs.
They broke protocol. He was looking around like,
He's looking much more chill this time, though. He's, draw me like one of your French thugs.
I think...
Now you're the one. Explain! Do you agree with me or no?
I would not have arrived at that place myself, no. I probably would say I have always...
Well, then
liked the first one as the best. However... I don't inherently, on a gut level, disagree with you. I just have not ever heard that perspective.
Well, so do you have... This is why I'm asking is, do you have the criticisms... It seems as though you don't have the criticisms that the average population might of the second and third.
I think they're overplayed, yes. That's certainly true.
Well, then I won't be able to use you as a contrast. But this is what I... So then we'll use the comments. These are what I would guess... If I had to guess, why is it that people seem down on the sequels? These are the things I might wonder. Are three sorts of possibilities. Do people not like the outside the Matrix stuff? Is that too far into the sci-fi wibbly wobbly?
That's possible.
Or is it... One thing I did think of, even while watching specifically the second one, which I think probably does this the most, is... It's very indulgent with its action sequences. They go on for a very long time.
I appreciate that as a martial artist.
So that's what I wonder is, do some people think, all right, they're phoning this combat stuff in and they should get back to the actual plot? I wondered that is the possible outcome. Or...
Can you ever really be upset with Keanu Reeves and his epic commitment to his craft?
Well, I think he's earned that, especially in recent days.
Exactly.
But this, I suppose, was the film that did that for him.
Yeah.
And then the other thought, I was like, do people maybe find its attempts at philosophical exploration too trite?
That's the part that I definitely
would disagree with those people.
I would disagree, but that's the part I think is the crux of most people's
and I suppose this is actually the one thing I did think, and this is probably the one I think is the most valid. Oh, come on. I got him in the head several times, but he's wearing his mask. Okay. Come on. Let's see if I can jangle. I got chords that jingle, jangle, jingle.
Chords?
It's a cord.
I thought you said
cables.
Initially, I thought you said corns.
I have corn that jingle, jangle, jingles.
I've got corn.
Well, I mean, when it goes
jangle,
when it goes straight through you. If you've eaten nothing but corn, it will do that when it goes through you.
No. Now I'm just picturing
Good
nothing but just a corn log.
No, it's not even a log. If all you've eaten is corn, all that will come out is corn. I don't know why we eat corn, because it doesn't seem like we're capable of digesting it. Like, if you eat nothing but corn for a meal,
That is extreme. Trying to eat that.
all that will come out is corn. Anyways, now that we've really spoiled your appetites, I did have one criticism. I didn't think of it as a criticism, but I was like, if someone were to raise this as a criticism, I could definitely see that as being more valid than anything else. Neo's out of the Matrix abilities don't have much of an explanation. The reason he's able to do all the stuff he does in the Matrix is A, the Matrix isn't real, and once...
What out of the Matrix abilities?
The fact that he can sort of
Still
manipulate...
fight
No, he can manipulate the Sentinels. This is the major plot of the third film.
Yeah, but that makes sense, because he...
Well, not exactly, because he's out of the Matrix.
Yeah,
like,
but
the reason he can do stuff in the Matrix is because he's... The whole point of the Matrix is once you realize that it's all a simulation, you then, as a person in it, can manipulate it.
Right, but do you not remember...
But he's outside the Matrix at
If you
his
do
point.
not remember that in the first film, he literally entered the code, essentially?
That's the second film. When he speaks with the architect?
No.
That's the second film. I
No,
just
I'm not
watched
talking
it.
about. I'm not talking about speaking with the
entered the
architect.
code.
Yeah, in the first
source
film.
code?
Yes.
That's the second film. He enters
No.
the source and speaks with the architect.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about when he dies essentially in the first one, and then becomes okay.
Oh, and the nads! Well, that didn't stop his grenade, though.
I thought it might.
Oh, he missed. Well, that was his nad, actually.
He just shot his nad
They
off.
detach and then they're grenades.
Oh, come on.
You wasted that opportunity. You unicized him, and you still couldn't take him down. Castrate is the verb.
so
Unicize is not.
Hey,
Put that in Urban
on
Dictionary
that note,
to make one a eunuch. This is why maybe I just need to rewatch the first film.
The first film, he dies, and when he dies, and then takes he has this bit of a Christos moment of coming back to life. He literally can not only see he doesn't see the Matrix as
Matrix. He sees it as the code. He sees it like the computer.
Code. Yes,
like the guys who are watching from the outside.
But then he's literally able to jump into.
But that's not the same as being the real world. Isn't the Matrix? So why would you be able to see the code?
I understand that, but he literally jumps into the Smith, which is essentially one of the computer bots, if you will,
program,
within
yes.
the Matrix.
Well, this is the question I have.
So I say on the outside, it totally makes sense that he can manipulate him, because at this point, he understands what their code is, and he can manipulate it.
But he's not plugged in. The reason you can... Like, literally all he does is he... See, that's where you go. That feels like, to the average sci-fi person, I could see how that's a bit of a stretch to be like, oh, he's got Bluetooth connection to the Sentinels. Because the Sentinels aren't in the Matrix.
But it didn't bother me too much.
It didn't bother me either, but this is because this is my continuing hot take. I think the film is a Taoist allegory.
How so?
I think that its interpretations, and this is why I would say the people who might view its sci-fi-ishness or its attempts at philosophy too vague. Oh, come on.
I certainly don't think
I would disagree with them, because I actually think the points that it makes...
What?
The way...
That was one for the books.
Specifically, the kinds of things like his conversations with the Oracle, or with the guy when they're in the back sort of the tunnels of the Matrix, like the back room sort of effect, and he has the conversation with the guy about love is a human emotion, and he says, no, it's a word. It's like there's a lot of very Zen-like things, and maybe some people treat them as like, these sorts of pithy Zen-like aphorisms that aren't actually useful, but I'm like, if you study Zen and Taoism, they're speaking a lot of true statements.
true.
I really thought, like, for instance, with the Oracle and the idea that, you can only see as far as the choices you understand because all the choices have already been made. And it's like, I think that's not that far off. And I think ultimately the final battle...
the collective consciousness, which I don't specifically ascribe to.
Well, but that I don't think is entirely what Zen is about.
No, it's not. But I'm just saying, do you not agree that borders
I think if you
on
didn't,
that concept?
it does border, and I suppose if you were not versed in it, you might think of it as too new agey. But I don't think Zen. If you know about it, then you know that that's not what Zen is saying. So that's not what the film is saying.
True. Well,
now I'm setting myself up as being the correct one, and everyone who doesn't agree just doesn't get the film. But I'm not attempting to state that. But I'm just saying, like the final battle with Smith, where his whole point is, why do you bother to keep fighting when it's impossible to win?
The first one,
and the final one. I literally just watched this the other night.
The third?
Yes. It's the final battle with Smith. I watched the second one and I thought, I like the second one better than the first one. And then I was like, I should finish the whole series. And
my
I like
only
both of
question with the third one, and this kind of may bring your argument to a bit of a point.
Because it had none up until now.
No. I mean, like a point, like as in a sharpened, like...
Sharpen my point.
But the...
Come on, baby, light my fire. Get out the rasp.
The concept that when he talks to the actual like sentient computer mind,
the thing at the very end, the weird god
that's
head.
the part that I was like, okay.
That I did feel a little bit.
That's the only part that really lost me in the third.
I don't think I was lost by it, but it was a little bit like I think it was pushing the boundaries, but I think it had earned it by the fact that it's the third film. I mean, I think they should have done. They didn't jump to that.
It's made it a jump allegory. You don't get to talk to God. Bye now. I'm joking, but no, I'm. That's the only part that did kind of lose me. So, but I think because the point, it becomes an absurdist sort of Taoist thing, where as he's fighting Smith, I think they did a good job of saying both like the architect, all of the programs can't comprehend the concept of choice because they're programs. So the fact that this I suppose spoiler for a literal 20-year-old film at this point. Like the fact that the way he defeats Smith is by basically integrating with Smith, and then I at least interpreted it this way, is that because he literally says during the final battle, he's taunting him saying, why bother keep fighting when you know you can't win? And he says, because I choose to. That's very absurdist going, because the stone's not going up the hill. I can't beat you, but I can fight you. And I'm not trying to get the stone up the hill. I'm just trying to move the stone. Are we to be two immortals locked in an epic battle until trumpet sound and judgment day?
It's a little bit of that. I think that, and then I think
you could surrender.
I think the fact that I think they do a good job of setting up the idea that the reason the Matrix doesn't work is because it can't comprehend the concept of choice. And I mean, they even established that in the second film where he's saying we had to create the opportunity for Neo. We had to basically allow this kind of a person to arise because we had to instill some form of choice because otherwise people would reject the Matrix. Right. But we essentially acted. It's essentially a release valve.
Right.
That's exactly over enough time, the built-up resentment of people who realize they don't actually have much choice. Mm-hmm. It's like that's going to bubble over into one person who attempts to do it. Mm-hmm. So we have to allow for that, mm-hmm. and thus that's why we created this system to sort of reset where the person who has the choice ends up.
But we wanted to still do it within our control group.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like they set that up of being they don't understand choice, so by Neo essentially joining with Smith, and it destroys Smith because Smith doesn't comprehend choice. And
but
Neo
what's
is
interesting
choice.
is he literally wrestles with choice itself. That's the thing. Neo is simply representative because notice in the second and third movie, especially when Smith is actually free on a physical level, he literally runs rampant with the choice that he has.
And this is
like
the question.
The whole me thing.
This is the question that arises: is Neo also a program? They don't make this clear because he obviously had a body that was plugged into the Matrix. Smith had to steal the body.
Right.
So that raises the question of like, well, clearly Neo. But then they also say Neo's been around before. So do they just select a random person, or is Neo a program? built to relieve the sort of tension of choice. And it just so happens that he was captured by the people who let him out, and therefore he had the body. Because that then would make his ability to both see when he's blind and control the robots make more sense, because he's actually a part of the Matrix. The film does not answer this question, so this is why I thought it was a thought experiment.
This is the thing that I'm not... This is the gap that I jumped that I don't feel like you are jumping, which is that he can be a user, but in that first movie... He becomes user and program.
Well, maybe that's why I should give the first one a second chance.
Because here's the thing. In that moment, when he basically is reborn, I believe his body and personhood is integrated into the Matrix.
Well, that's why in the second or the third film, he's able to be in the Matrix without being plugged in.
Correct. Because arguably at that point, he is a part. At that point, I would
So then,
agree
so then that's the only criticism that I feel is valid, which is his powers outside the Matrix aren't as well explained. It's like, okay,
that's certainly true.
Put some thought into it, and it does still make sense. But nonetheless, my whole point is forget the realisticness of it, because of course it's a sci-fi film.
Yeah.
So this might sound strange coming from me, considering that I have the issue with things like The Prestige, where they try to. I've said before, when you set at the beginning, you basically bill me ahead of time and say, this is the suspension of disbelief we want you to engage in.
That is the huge part
If you say that at the beginning, then I'm willing to pay that, and I feel like I'm relatively open-minded. So if you say at the beginning, we're going to make something so unrealistic and it's just going to be a good time.
Just go for it. Yeah,
if you say that, then I'll be like, okay, go ahead.
Right.
If you try to bill me this is going to be slightly realistic and it's going to be interesting and intricate, and then you try to slip in a bit of impossibility, I go, hey, this wasn't what I agreed to.
Signed up for, exactly.
I admit that I've had that position in the past.
Well, that truthfully
and the Matrix
is the fall of arguably the Marvel universe for me, because if you look at like the first couple Iron Mans, it's like, this was really good. And
I think that was just a matter of laziness over time.
Oh, for sure. But I'm saying that was the issue. It was again that whole suspension of disbelief is that element that I think in a lot of films, truthfully, are missing, is that lack of intentionality with that just almost demands that you have to be lazy.
It seems like insecurity. It's like if you just say, hey...
Jeez Louise, you came up those stairs fast this time.
I think a lot of people...
He just was like...
A lot of studios... I feel there's an aversion to just asking the audience to suspend disbelief. And it just seems like they try to make it like, we're going to be realistic and not as cartoonish, and maybe they feel like that's a bad thing. We can't be fun, wacky sci-fi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not true. You can't be that when you pretend not to be.
Right.
If you say to me, we're going to make a really kind of crazy, sci-fi thing, and it's going to be a fun time, just give us the suspension of disbelief. If you say that up front, then that's what I know what to expect. It's when you try to sneak it in. Well, again, Star Trek is a ridiculous concept, but it sets out to say, hey, we're going to explore some interesting sci-fi themes in space. And I go, great, fun. You've got fun characters, you explore interesting concepts. I don't care that it's not possible, because you never said it was. It's when you attempt to be like, oh, this is going to be a gritty... I think The Prestige is ultimately the best example of this. It's
a good example.
You set out... You told me, hey, we're going to make an interesting crime thriller about, people who use... Did I kill him or is he not? I don't think I killed him.
You just alerted him.
I gave him a center
Somebody
parting.
just tried to cap my head.
I gave him a center parting. Whoop. Is he dead? Oh, he's getting up.
This time. That was an interesting run right there.
Because he looked like he was dead.
Jim, he just shot me. Go in there.
Yeah. So maybe this could also be a criticism people might have, is the first Matrix, because it's up front and says where literally the entire world is a simulation, so anything goes. Maybe people were like, oh, okay, I can get with that, because again, it's built. But then they exit the Matrix and you go, well, now the rest of the world, which theoretically by your own logic is the real world, these things shouldn't be possible.
But I only think that took a little bit of time, because Neo is arguably the only person that has any level of...
Well, no, the technology of the real world is definitely like, okay, this stuff's not possible either. Like the city of Zion isn't a place that could exist.
Not true.
Not really. It's got a whole bunch of technology that doesn't really... I mean, you might argue it's sci-fi technology that doesn't break the laws of physics, but I think the point is, when you say we're a film set in like if the real world was a simulation, then theoretically anything goes as long as it's a simulation. Then people, when you get out of the Matrix, you realize, well, okay, the sci-fi nonsense that I thought was only in the Matrix is now everywhere. And so that maybe is the other reason people had an issue with it. Could be. It's nads. Oh, you've been blinded by the nads.
Blinded by the nads, and I'm still gonna...
Oh, you still got them, though. But again, this is one of the unique cases where I normally am the person who's very fastidious about the bill. I'm like, you did not tell me I was going to be paying for sci-fi nonsense. And I feel like, the films, I think, do a reasonable enough job. It's like, yeah, okay, The Matrix, even if you're going to say life is a simulation so anything goes, life being a simulation is an impossible thing. Like, a simulation that could be this sophisticated couldn't exist either. So the idea that the technology outside of it's not possible, it's like, well, okay, yeah, The Matrix itself isn't possible.
Well, sorry, you can't turn a human into a battery in that type of way.
Yeah, but more than that, I think it has a rare thing where it manages to transcend the need for believability at all, because I think it becomes an allegory. Genuinely.
Sure.
I think it becomes an allegory for consciousness.
That's a good.
And it's like, at that point, do you get mad when a character in a mythological story pulls random magic out of nowhere? I mean, if it's truly out of nowhere, and it feels like it doesn't fit. But that's the thing is, they manage to make weird magic, essentially, feel like it fits. Because again, it doesn't have to make sense because there's an intuitive sense that it works. And I think that's what they did is really well, is the fact that they make all of the decisions don't necessarily make logical sense, but they make intuitive sense.
Right. Then that's the thing I think that's important.
And that's very difficult to accomplish.
Right.
So again, it's like, okay, Neo has the ability to control these things, regardless of the potential scientific explanations within the universe, whether it's a Wi-Fi connection or if he's
getting a lot farther with this technique than I expected to.
It's a little bit dull.
Well, that's
just stare down the iron sights. Those guys are big. They're not going to take them out with one shot.
Okay, well then what should I do?
Don't make me play by proxy.
Not that. That's not what I meant to do.
Well, you could get one of them to come over here and blow themselves up, I guess, but... So, ultimately, I think it works as a Taoist allegory, at which point I don't need it to make scientific and or logical sense, because I think it makes intuitive sense. The ability for Neo to control them...
I capture Noodle.
I think you missed him. Oh, well, that time you definitely missed him. The ability... Well, he's going to come up, so let your mind get someone. Oh, has he come up and died? They found out!
No! Okay.
The fact that he suddenly has the ability to control the things outside the Matrix, you could make up any number of a number of scientific explanations, whether it be that he's technically now a part of the Matrix or it's a Wi-Fi connection.
My only issue is
but regardless, it makes sense that he needs this power at this point in the plot because he has become enlightened, as it were. He's met the source code. He basically... Does it make scientific sense? No, but it makes intuitive sense that at this point he should have this power because of what he's been through.
Well, not just what he's been through, but again...
And again, it's an allegory. If you treat it as an allegory, I'm perfectly willing to say, yeah, it makes sense to me.
You can treat it as an allegory, but you can also apply, again, some... It's... Again, is it sensible in that the technology or that kind of thing would exist right now in today's world? No. But to say that... And this, go with me on this, because this is going to require a little bit of...
I called The Matrix a Taoist allegory, and you think I'm the one who needs to be brought along?
No, I'm just saying, if you argue... It's a bit like consciousness being put into binary process has always been something that's been teased in various sci-fi stuff. And so I go, it's not that impossible to go, Neo died and his consciousness essentially became a part of the Matrix, and therefore he lived and continued to occupy a body, and essentially at that point was animating body.
I don't think it's quite
it's
that.
like,
but then it's also that same incident, because even that's what Smith says in episode 2, or the second film, saying, you know, the fact that I watched you die and then come back, that not only was sort of Neo's resurrection, but that was the catalyst that broke Smith free from the confines of the Matrix.
Right.
Because then after that, he becomes a menace even to the other programs.
Right.
Because he's now rogue.
Well, but the point in that
I
is...
gave you a pierced ear.
A rogue... He's a rogue program.
I don't think this man's real.
Because he's decided...
I think he's an animatronic full of springs.
The boundaries of his own programming are then removed.
When he even says to Neo, I want what you want, purpose. Because it's like, I was a program, I just did what I was told, but now I've seen you defy the program.
This is the part that I don't get at the end of the third one.
Well, is it just it's like a 2-minute conversation with the Godhead.
But then he dies because he goes in.
Well, because he gets integrated with Smith.
So that's where I go.
That's the question, is he truly dead? I never saw the fourth film. Maybe that's the whole plot, is that he's not dead?
He's not.
I figured that was going to be what the plot of it was.
But that is my hang up. I go, that part doesn't.
It's not that unsensible that he basically sacrifices himself. It's a bit of the Tron thing. He joins with the opposite program, and by doing so destroys it because they're opposed. You can't integrate antimatter and antimatter. It comes off as very tropey. Now, maybe is that just now though?
Tropey,
because it was the first?
No. Tropey in that, like, you have that kind of thing even in stuff like Lion the Witch Wardrobe, which is like, okay, you know, he sacrifices himself then because of the fact
but that's a Christian allegory by literal.
It is, but I don't think
this is that.
It's a little.
Tron is the best example. You remember how? No, do you remember how Tron ends? The remake, I should say. It's literally he reintegrates himself with Clue, but because Clue and him have become ideologically opposed, they can't be integrated, so their integration destroys each other. And he knows that, and he does that on purpose.
Right.
They literally suggest that Smith is the program's attempt to balance Neo.
I understand.
So they can't be integrated without destroying one another. Therefore, it makes sense that would be the way he defeats him.
Can I just say your legs look very feminine from that angle,
His or mine? Well, he's got the weird chicken legs. Oh, no, he doesn't. No, not quite. He's kind
of got some weird heels going on.
Well, I think
I think you need to quit cross-dressing and just go back to...
I don't, but I think these are like those are not,
for sure.
Those are not shoes. Those are his legs. Some people got the weird chicken like backwards bending knees. I don't think it's these guys.
Oh man, he chicken for real. Anyway, no, that's interesting.
Because literally, I don't get why you have an issue with that, other than that it mostly feels unnecessary. I don't think it feels like it breaks the flow. It just doesn't feel like it's...
It's not that it breaks the flow. It just feels cheap.
Because essentially that thing, whatever it was arguably like the central computer.
I think the argument...
Because the architect is a program. He's in the Matrix, whereas that thing is the machine that built the Matrix.
Right, it's the motherboard, essentially.
At which point he's saying, you know, Smith is now broken free of your control over him, so my terms are, I will defeat him if you leave humanity alone. And the computer, knowing that it's... What is... We are profound fools!
What?
The jammer we're supposed to... Wow!
What?
This is the thing we're supposed to deactivate. And we've been in this room so many times.
Have we? You've been in this room so many times.
Well, I mean, this isn't the end of the mission, but like this is the first step. This will allow us to actually see our objective marker, because the whole point is that it's being blocked. Nope. No cake for you. Oh, I'm not going to get it. Well, that was easy. Signal jammer. Well, that feels... Whoops.
I don't disagree with you. I think I've never had a problem with any of the films as a whole. I just think...
I do wish if they were going for the speaking to the motherboard, it could have been more... I thought that the design more than anything was kind of lame. It's just a big faceless blob made of nanomachines. And I'm like, there's something iconic about a well-designed AI. It's like, why do we keep talking about HAL, despite the fact that movie is like 80 years old at this point? It's because it was HAL 2000 or 9000 or whatever he is. It's like that. Do I not have the skill to hack this? Well, I guess I don't. It's like, because when you make a really well-designed AI, and I just felt like that did feel a little bit tacked on, where it's like, and then he speaks to the motherboard and it's just a face made out of nanomachines. I'm like, that's such a dull way to do it. Because everything else in the film has a really interesting design, and I just felt like that was not it. But that's more of a minor detail.
So we've
like
unlocked it would
we got
feel a
objective
little bit
now.
different if it wasn't. What it gave me pause about
was a complex.
Is whether it was all still a part of the function, if you will, of the program of the one, you know.
His death and resurrection, they
not just his
they
death
explicitly say that he comes back every time.
Right.
Now this time he's technically succeeded.
Right, but
all the other times they crush Zion and they basically the program just resets. But in this time they actually managed to create a sort of truce.
But my point is, in that they essentially still get the end result the same. Because
humanity's not.
No, because Smith balances it out, and then he has to sacrifice himself again, and then it's done.
Well, but they say, at least in the second film, the argument is that once he reaches the source code, he basically reintegrates at that point, which resets the Matrix, and everything goes back to normal. Like the Matrix is essentially reset. In this, the Matrix isn't exactly reset. The Matrix is sort of undone.
Undone, or I don't think it's.
It's not destroyed, but they literally have the conversation where it's like they're going to release people now. That's the ending scene with the architect. Is like they're going to actually allow people to leave the Matrix
if they want.
Sure, but
you better believe that they're not specifically communicating to people that
maybe
this
not.
Is
but that means that
you get a bit meta in that the argument.
This guy is not wearing a helmet, so if I do this,
he's literally walking.
Like, look at that! He's not wearing a helmet. That is a balaclava. Like, the guys with the helmets, I can understand that they can be shot in the head and not die because they're helmets. Sure, that is just a... He's got the John Wick suit material in there.
In his own face? He's put it under his skin.
Well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's actually his augmented head. That's not a thing he's wearing. That's just his face. Well, I have something for you. Here she is. Oh boy, this ought to be fun. I bet he's gonna get up. Or his friends. Yep, here he goes. I can play whack-a-mole. This is hurting me. I'm standing too close to the explosions. I think I got that guy dead, but this guy's still getting up.
Or is he just squatting because he's afraid of your elephant shot?
I think he's staying down. I'm not over there. Ha! Whoa, spready!
So spready to the gods, and then...
Okay, well, we're doing better. So I will give the first film a rewatch because maybe I just missed some stuff about it.
I think I still would say the first film
I feel like the first one had more mindless action than the rest.
Up.
But is that always an excuse?
No, it's not the excuse, but what I'm saying, I think it sets it up well. Because again, you have that whole death resurrection, but it's different this time because the way in which he resurrects isn't just, I resurrect on my own terms because of the fact that I'm in the Matrix. It's, I resurrect into the very fabric of what the Matrix is, which is
I suppose, but if the criticism is, who was shooting me?
That's the criticism.
Oh, there's a turret. If the criticism is that, like, maybe the other films get too absorbed in their own mindless action, I think the first film has the most mindless action. Because I think the rest of them, the action is usually serving the plot. Like, the action doesn't feel like we're just going to have a big punch-up sequence.
Yeah, but I don't feel like I've ever had a problem with this, partly because, I'm a martial artist and I just appreciate it for
I do agree that it's well done. For mindless action, it's well done.
The other part of it is I go, how much qualm can you really have with that? You're watching an action film.
Well,
I'm sorry.
It's a little bit like... Oh, I'm going the wrong way. You could make the argument. We had this conversation about the Transformers films, which is, John Wick is far more competently... Oh, are you serious?
That was so close. It
was at like 90%. I thought I could make it. It had...
That didn't look close.
John Wick is really much more sophisticated in terms of cinematography, choreography. It's all a lot more well done.
Sure.
And I think you should still expect that, because Transformers is literally just spectacle, the movie.
Yeah, but spectacle is different than action, I feel.
No, I think action is spectacle. I mean, it's a square rectangle conundrum. Not all spectacle is action, but all action is spectacle. Or is it maybe the other way around? I'm not sure.
I think it's the other way around.
But in either case, my point is...
But do you see my point? In the
Transformers, you can't defend unless you're willing to say, well, it's just mindless action. It's like, but that's...
Yeah, but it's stupid action.
Yeah,
it's
but
like
that's my point.
Why? Because...
But that's my point, is you can't just say, can you get mad at an action film for not being good? It's like, well, yes, if it's... Well, yes. If it doesn't make sense.
But my point is, you can't... Okay, so maybe I'll ratify my statement.
That's my point, is I think the action in The Matrix makes sense.
It doesn't just make sense. It also is...
integral to it?
It's not. It's well executed. The reason that Transformers didn't work is because it was a spectacle, but it was also a poorly executed spectacle. It was like explosions and...
Well, I wouldn't even say poorly executed. It's just lazy.
Well...
It succeeded at what it was trying to do.
Was not
it just wasn't trying to do anything interesting.
But that's my point. In The Matrix, you have all these action sequences, and people can complain, "Oh, well, that didn't."
I mean, I suppose the argument of the CG being dated. It's like, well, yeah, it was early.
For me,
I've seen some of those comments.
No,
it's
that's the dumb argument.
If that's your argument, then it's a dumb one, because it's like, yeah, it's from 20 years ago.
No, what I'm saying is
Then again, don't act like that's a dismissive thing. You're like that with your weird horror hang-ups.
What?
You and Indiana Jones saying, I can't get over the effects being terrible. So don't act like just because it's CG, I can get over bad CG, but I can't get over bad practical effects. Don't act like that's valid.
It's not... Sure. My point is that in The Matrix, there is an actual genuine...
You're going to leave your water running, so you're going to... Oh, it's one of those shut-off types.
Sophistication to the action sequences, so even if you don't feel like they're integral to the plot, they still have... They're well executed, and they are sensible in that what they are doing is still...
Well, arguably, they're the proto-John Wicks.
Well, yeah, it still makes sense to the story. They may not be integral, but it still makes sense to the story. Whereas something like Transformers, it's a little bit more like, what's the point?
It makes sense to the story, if only because the story is so surface level that anything could make sense.
But that's the challenge.
Again, I don't think the Transformers movies failed. It wasn't bad execution. It was just it succeeded at being
bad
all it wanted. No, because it succeeded at what it was trying to do, and what it was trying to do was just dumb and lame. Like, it was this is my point.
I don't think
Transformers is not badly made.
It's just dumb. Like, we want to execute dumb and lame.
They absolutely know it's a spectacle film. Nothing but. I'm certain that they know that. They were not attempting to make a sort of fascinating sci-fi exploration of humanity. They were attempting to make big stuff break. That was their design document. My point is that's literally big stuff break.
But that's literally the plot of the entire Transformers franchise.
But this is my point. That's what I'm saying.
Like, even in the cartoons,
they succeeded at what they wanted to do.
Constant battle bots.
But this is my point. Okay. They succeeded at what they were trying to do. But what they were trying to do was just dumb.
Was a very lame concept. Yes.
Yeah. It's not that they made spectacle films that were dumb. It's that they made dumb films. Like they did, like conceptually speaking, they're dumb films.
It's that they made a film. I'm just kidding.
Like, someone's alive. There was an Invisible Man. Not my favorite sci-fi book, by the way, The Invisible Man.
I have not read
Totally off kilter, but I had to take the segue. It's not that great because it doesn't make that much sense. Like, he starts out by... I guess we'll derail onto this topic for a bit. He starts out by like, I've discovered a way to make myself invisible, and then he gets up to like impish shenanigans. He's like, now that I'm invisible, I can sneak in places and I can steal things, and it's sort of juvenile.
Sure.
And then at the beginning of the book, it's revealed that he's attempting to undo it because he's like, this is actually really hard because I can't interact with people when I need to.
Sure.
And then somewhere along the line in the middle of the book, he's like, actually, screw that, I'm going to take over the world.
What?
Literally, at some point in the book, he's like, I will become the sort of phantom that controls humanity because they can't stop me. It's like, I thought you were trying to get out of this predicament, pal. And then he just commits to it, I guess.
Well, it's like... if I can't have human relationship, or if that takes too much effort, forget.
Because at first it's like, okay, yeah, he uses it to for his own ends at the beginning in minor ways, but then he tries to get out of it.
Well, but the argument is he's trying to get out of it because he needs human connection.
That's actually apparently because H.G. Wells was a bit of a socialist. That was his point. Is it's like true libertarianism doesn't work because being that level of atomization means that you can't actually interact with society effectively. That's at least the analysis I've heard some people make of it. I'm not so sure about it, but I just found that his switch from I'm trying to find a way to undo this to I'm actually going to declare myself emperor of the world. I was like, sorry, I'm not tracking here. But anyways, random aside about the Invisible Man. So, do you buy my Taoist allegory? Because that's literally what I was thinking the whole time. Is I'm like, this is either the most sophisticated Taoist film, or it's admittedly, if you don't, I can see how if you don't get that aspect of it, it does feel a little bit like sci-fi schmoz, as I believe the wrestling term is. So maybe if you can't get on board with that, but then I would say, why can't you get on board with that? Again, I would say you might just misunderstand Zen if you think that it's new age wibbly wobbly, but it doesn't matter if you hit them in the head, they will not die.
Such a dumb.
They're big tank muscle men with cardboard heads.
But to me, if you
but if I shoot the cardboard head,
that
you're thinking about games from 20 years ago. Get with the times.
No, I'm just simply saying.
Sneak attacks don't do any more damage because there's no
man
reason.
in the ear hole because of the fact that
if he's got an augmented ear hole,
if you see through his armor, there's always a chink in the armor.
No, not in these games. There is no. That's an augmented ear hole.
Let's just stop that sentence, George.
Okay, we're not at the end here. I don't know if you thought that was going to be your ending.
No. I just think that's a funny.
Is time going slowly? This is weird. Normally, I feel like we get halfway.
Are you having some sort of a out-of-body experience?
Maybe I've ascended. Well, because normally I find that whenever I have a topic that's deep like this, it's like we get through the first 3 sentences of my planned explanation. It's like, oh, time's up. Whereas now it's like we got time to spare, and I feel like we've been talking about it for a while.
Particularly deep.
If it's a Taoist allegory, Taoist allegory. This is my opinion on the film.
But I don't think that's an unfair statement.
But I'm actually rather curious. You were just attempting to say that it's not that deep.
But
it's like if it's a Taoist allegory, it kind of has to be deep.
Not
by nature. Well, because allegory, of all allegories, the Taoist ones are usually the sort of deep.
Sure. But I don't know that it... Well, maybe simplification or simplicity is not specifically not deep, I suppose. It's just a matter of...
Well, it's one of those so simple you miss it kind of concepts.
Yeah.
I have not seen the 4th one. You have. Is it any good?
It's been a long time, honestly, so I don't remember.
Can't be that long. It came out like 4 years ago.
No.
Yeah, it came out like 2019.
Then maybe I'm thinking of a different thing.
Well, I don't know.
I know I saw the
thinking of the Animatrix?
Yeah, I did see that one.
I've now downloaded that, and I'm ready to watch it, but I haven't, because I've heard that that's more of a, not so much plot, but like interesting world building.
I think it sits somewhere between the first and second movie.
See, I've heard people say that it's actually incredibly good on an artistic level, like...
The actual execution of the animation, or the...
No, it's almost like an experimental film, but like in a really good one. I don't know. I haven't watched it yet, but... I was going to follow this up somewhere. I don't know what I was going to say.
I don't know what you were going to say.
Taoist allegories.
What can you do, huh?
There's your koan for the week.
I was about to say.
Taoist allegories, what can you do? And the answer is, cluck like a chicken or something. That's the one thing about the whole Zen koan thing is... I know they must do it on purpose.
Oh, I wanted to see you before you saw me. That was dumb.
Got some kind of weird stuff in my nose. The thing I have... Give me that. The thing about the koans, and I know they must do this on purpose, is that they're attempting to make you feel self-conscious.
Okay.
Because the answer to them is always like an embarrassing sort of thing you have to do. Like, you can't actually answer the koans with speech, because that's kind of their whole point, is like, if you can explain it, then you don't understand it.
Sure.
You have to embody it.
Sure.
So, like, one of the ones Alan Watts describes is, I forget exactly the setup for it, but the answer is to literally mimic a baby's cry. Because it's essentially saying, I forget how it was, but he was arguing that it was a reference, some mythological reference of, now I'm forgetting it because it was a one I saw recently, but I recall the answer and not the question, which I suppose is my problem. But like one of the other ones is, you ask, two girls are walking down the street, which one's the younger? And the answer is you just have to let your leg walk like a sort of stereotypical girlish walk. It's like, and you kind of have to just commit to it fully. And like Alan Watts does all this stuff because he's like got no filter at all. And so he usually will give, like, he'll do the weird mimic or the answer as it is. And it's like, I just feel like in such a serious context, I would feel very self-conscious doing that, which I guarantee is the point.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
It's still, I'm just like, can I not just tell you my thoughts on the thing? Because you made me spend 24 hours meditating. Can I not just tell you rather than act it out? But of course, that's not the point.
The point is to become.
So really, what can you do?
Well, that's...
Make a fool of yourself, I guess. Because a fool is what you are already. I'm sure that's what they would say. Anyway, I'm eating milk. Don't think about it, Sonny. I've got your on lock. Whoa, he had me on lock. All right. Well, I'm surprised that we got some time. What's your thoughts on The Matrix?
I have always, again, for me, there are certain films that I watch not exclusively for the content on a martial arts level, but there is a degree of appreciation for films that have that element
it's
very
deliberately
heavily.
wire-fooey, because of course only in The Matrix could that
but
be
again,
possible.
in a sensible manner,
sure,
within the context
Matrix,
of the
but
world.
That
exactly.
doesn't. You wouldn't watch it being like, "Wow, what great martial arts they're doing," because most of it's impossible.
Well, I agree to disagree, because the initial scene between him and Morpheus is a fantastic sequence of well choreographed martial arts.
Yeah, but doesn't he execute like the triple air quadruple kick or something absurd?
Yes.
That's not actually possible?
Correct. But so there's a degree of, okay, I can see that certain things are for sure wire fu, but it doesn't, okay, I'm going to compare it. Okay,
you keep trying.
Because I'm used to doing that from like film or games like BioShock. You can do that where you hit the open and then you kind of move back to give yourself some space.
To walk through the door, you need space?
Well, typically I would do that because sometimes you'd have a splicer going, bah! Right when you came through the door. Just coming around the corner, just bah!
It's not going to work. He's wearing a helmet. I try to tell you these things. You're stuck in Doom land where a headshot means death.
Anyway, so in that sense, I think I'm going to use the example of the new, or one of the new Marvel films that I actually felt like was fairly good, which is the... Why
is your tablet so dark? You one of these weirdos? That's a very dark level to have it at as just ambient background.
Well, I mean, it's not...
Not recently.
I don't always have it this dark, but when I do, I
do.
drink Dos Equis.
Well, when I do, I do.
No, the...
AIDS is AIDS and corn is corn.
Shang-Chi and the battle.
Oh, did you watch that?
I thought it was fantastic in the way that it executed the martial arts. Again, certain times very wire-fooey, but within the realm of magic and kind of that exists. And so, okay, that's sensible. You'll know what I mean if you compare it to old wire-fu movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, it's like, okay, that is absurd. But these actually have some
Whoa!
So
that's the way to do it.
Wushu is one of the bases that they use for
Come on. Oh.
for this that film, and I think it's well executed. In The Matrix, they use a little bit more of a sports style Shaolin Kung Fu, if I had to say anything, and it's what.
It's just if I had to say anything, which I don't, because this whole conversation was my own. This is your topic, so you didn't.
Well, no, it's not.
No one's asking you, what would you say it is? Oh, I have to say it's this.
No, I'm simply saying this is what I think
Commit
of
to your
the
opinions.
films. And it's
I say this. No is no is no.
That in itself, I think I have a high level of appreciation for the films.
Exactly.
And
so say it with conviction.
I just did.
No, you said if I had to. No one's making you.
But
say it because you want to say it.
But
I'm Tony Robbinsing you.
The other thing that I think is arguable is that Matrix was probably one of the first films I watched that was true sci-fi in my life.
As opposed to false sci-fi? Or?
No, but I mean there is a degree of like a...
Or do you just mean when you were a kid?
Well, yeah, when I was a child. I watched movies like a child.
When I was a child, I thought as a child.
Oh. Okay, this is becoming monotonous.
Wow. Just because you can't do it? Gotta commit like Sisyphus, man.
But,
It's just Sisyphus, man. I still need to make that Aristotle meme. Just tis.
Tis. But... so that is probably like 70% of me loving those films is the
just that
fight sequences and the kind of interesting.
I don't know that I would have liked it for that reason, and I think that's why I didn't like the first one is because I don't think it got into as much of the psychological stuff,
true.
Which
That's
might have been
true.
maybe a lot of people were just wanting the sci-fi action, and I was like, no, I like this stuff.
But I'm saying...
And everyone else was going, that stuff gets in the way.
What movies did you watch before The Matrix that you would say qualify as like true...
I didn't watch The Matrix until I was like in college.
What I'm saying first. Far as true sci-fi, because my argument was, again, I think that The Matrix was one of the first true sci-fi films I've watched.
But you were praising it for its action, not its sci-fi-ness. I'm praising it for its
No, I'm saying that's a separate thing that I also think is good.
Oh, okay.
Is that for me? It was.
That's why I was carrying on. Is I'm saying I think many people might agree with you that they thought, oh, this is a great action, and so the sci-fi psychological stuff got in the way. Whereas to me, the sci-fi psychological stuff is what I like.
Exactly, that's a shame because I think that the 2 and 3 really showed that. More substance to the films than maybe people would have expected, which is a sad commentary again of culture, and we're going to go back to that argument.
Yay. Lather up.
Which is just, again, that
Get
it's just
in my sights.
That the minute that there's actual substance to something, people...
There you go!
That was a shot for the ages.
Good grief.
My word.
No, get back.
I've seen some shots you've made on this game, but that one took the cake.
Well, I put the effort in.
He took the cake right in his face.
Never mind.
What?
I was gonna say, I wasn't intending it to be suspect, but it would have been very suspect, so I won't say it. You're making me waste my revolver bullets on your glowing butt. No! Plant! Oh, I've been farted on. The plant got in my way.
You're woozy from the farts.
This is a massive one. Come on.
It's a juvie fart.
Juvie?
It's something that my brother-in-law used to, or my brother.
I don't want to guess.
It was...
Well, I'm not going to guess. Last time there was an invisible man. Is it just you now? Because I don't want your invisible pal to pop me one. Whoop. Hey! Where's your friend? It's a good thing I'm putting my weapon down and am now helpless.
I would save.
Ah! I knew you would reveal yourself. Well, I mean, are you that not confident in me? Look at your lack of faith. Now I will save, now that it's done.
Anyways. No, I do think that is
Because
why
my
I think
first sci-fi
the
was
first,
probably Star Wars. I mean, that's most likely what it was. I don't really remember.
I don't classify.
The prequels came out when I was a kid.
But then they are truly sci-fi. I just don't know that I ever would have.
They're not the psychological
them
sci-fi.
as sci-fi.
Not all sci-fi is sort of,
Not all sci-fi is sci-fi.
Not all sci-fi is the original iRobot contemplations on humanity. No, I'm not talking about the film. I'm talking about the book. But it's like some people think of sci-fi as like always exploring deep philosophical questions, and I don't know that it has to always do that. That is certainly one of the things it does well, when done well. But, I agree Star Wars doesn't really do that, although I think there's enough in it if you're looking for it. I think, again, we've had plenty of conversations about the Darth Vader.
Star Wars, to me,
Luke
lands as a little bit more of like a futuristic fantasy.
It's a sci-fantasy, you'd call it, I suppose, if such a thing is truly... That's never really been a term that's caught on, but science fiction fantasy. That's why they're always together on bookshelves in the stores. Sci-fi and fantasy usually have to share. They usually have to share some shelves. They can't just have their own. I'm not going to make it. This is really slow. That was my jingle for the week. I've got nodes. That jingle, jangle, jingle.
I've got nodes.
I didn't know.
They're multiplying.
That didn't work.
And I'm losing control.
What?
Oh, come on. That was brilliant.
This is supposed to be a 2. This is not a 2.
Used to look like 2 nodes put together.
We just got unlucky. You are not very lucky.
Even if there was a tire, there's no pickup.
All right, now I've got plenty of time.
So, yeah, no, that's a good...
Well, since we're talking about Star Wars, I'm excited for a thing, which I don't get to say about Star Wars much anymore.
That's certainly true.
So, apparently, some mad lad on YouTube said, hey, that Kenobi show had some real potential, but they missed a lot of it. I'm going to do what they should have done and turn it into a movie. And apparently, he actually has worked on Star Wars in the past. He didn't work on Kenobi, but he worked, apparently, he's part of the special effects team of Andor, which I have not seen. But,
neither have I.
Nonetheless, I'm fascinated because he was basically like, hey, I've got the skills, and I actually like Star Wars. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Doctor, could you get this node? Holy crap! It literally says 0 seconds left. Wow, that was intense. I bet you there's nothing I need in here. Oh, it's a file on me. Shouldn't be a problem. Okay. Let's find out. I was born in 1993. Adam Jensen's barely older than me. I mean, I guess this is set in the future, but both parents deceased, foster parents. University of Phoenix. SWAT officer.
Associate's degrees don't count. I'm sorry.
Criminal justice. Well,
people with AA degrees.
For criminal justice, if you're going to be a cop, that's not required. That would certainly help.
Well, I suppose.
Addendum recently augmented. Got big nads. See, armed and extremely dangerous. I'm reading into that, but it means big nads.
Armed and extremely dangerous.
Armed, if you know what I mean.
He's got a big package.
He's got a big arm down there.
Wow. Oh. Gonna be third knee.
Apparently our girlfriend was born in Seattle and moved to North California and France.
Who's Megan Reed? Is that
it's our girlfriend. It's not Boingo Knees.
It's not Boingo Knees?
No, this was pre-Boingo Knees girlfriend.
Well then who was she?
Well, who's that Erin? Hey, she became head of science team in 2023.
Is this the person I
Megan Reed's the head of science team right now.
Was she the one that I threatened with
Current
the gun?
status acquired. That's not how you refer to women, pal. Current status acquired. Right. She was from the beginning of the game, and she got kidnapped during the initial raid. And apparently she's been acquired. Anyways, what were you going to say, or were we talking about Star Wars?
Yeah, we were talking about Star Wars, and you were talking about the Kenobi deal.
Yes, I'm excited for that, because passion is what everybody in Hollywood lacks. So the fact that this guy says, hey, I've got a unique set of skills.
What we talked about earlier with the video game concept.
Well, now you've gone and spoiled it. No one had to know.
What?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the indie film or the indie game that you were talking about that gained so much traction.
Oh,
we don't.
Yes, we were talking about Undertale. Yes.
Yeah, but it's people that
he had.
Always
he had the creativity and the will to do it.
Right, and that will always go farther than even big budgets will go.
It'll go farther than anything ever. And so I'm just excited for this. And I've seen
Hollywood could figure out that money has less to do with good films. They
know that, I think. They just don't.
The fact that you had to go, I
think they know that they're not going to make. I don't think they care about making good films. Is the point? I don't think they care anymore. I think they know that
pumping out trash.
Because there's been a rule in Hollywood for a long time, which is that generally speaking, if you pour enough money into a film, it'll make it back, regardless of its quality.
True at all.
It's sadly truer than it should be. Like, it tends to be the case that's like, yeah, if we just...
Well, you may break
if
even,
you put enough,
is that seriously what you want to do?
Yes, because films are an investment nowadays, basically, is all.
Yeah,
and that's what's sad.
Making anything, you're just getting your money back.
They don't care. Well, no, they're getting, usually there's a slight return, but it's a little bit like buying bonds. It's like, okay, yeah, it didn't give us that much, but it gave us more than we put in. So
by maybe less than 10%.
It depends. And I think it's also 2%. But if you make 10% on 2 years, that's pretty good odds. That's better than the market.
I suppose that's true.
That's where I'm like, I don't think that Hollywood doesn't know how to make good films. I just don't think they're trying anymore. Genuinely, that's my opinion. I think people in Hollywood want to make good films, but sadly they don't usually get the chance. Usually people who actually have a vision and an idea of what they want to do end up getting stifled because Hollywood's like, yeah, but that'll cost us money. Whereas we could make the bare minimum tosh and, give it a big fat marketing budget and it'll probably make it back with a little bit of interest. And that's all we care about.
Right.
And it's like, that's why it's not going to change until they start failing. And the problem is the rule is becoming no longer true. That if you just dump money into a film, it'll make its money back. But, that has been true for a long time.
Yeah.
So, it's a shame.
Well,
but I'm really curious.
When can we actually look at it?
Well, there's trailers out now. His name is PixelJoker, I think is the YouTube channel. Something like that. Just look up Kenobi fan film. I'm sure it will yield something. But the trailers look really dope.
It'll yield a bunch of trash.
Well, it'll probably...
This makes sense in my fan
There's
fiction.
probably a lot of those that already exist, but this will be the one that everyone's talking about right now. But
I haven't read that.
But, the thing that's fascinating is he isn't just re-editing. He's actually redoing all the visual effects himself.
Oh, for sure. That makes sense.
And, apparently he's actually hired actors to do reshoots that they're going to, deep fake for certain scenes. So it's like, this isn't just... Because a lot of people have taken just the Kenobi content and cut it down to just eliminate the faff. But the problem is then it kind of feels disjointed because you're cutting out stuff that, as bad as it is kind of necessary to the plot. But whereas this, it's like, no, we're going to cut stuff out and then replace it with better stuff. So I'm very hopeful. And I've been here. And
there are men all standing here.
The trailers look really fascinating.
Lying dead upon the ground says I've been here.
I have no clue what you're going on about.
Oh, it's okay.
Is it Les Mis again?
No.
Okay, well that was my guess.
That one's even old.
I got a thing.
That reference was even older.
Get away.
It's unfortunate because it's probably not even something that most people know about.
Okay then. Why'd you bring it up?
Stop it! Why did you bring it up, you lemon?
But what's even better is there is hope, not exactly confirmation, but there is rumors that it may be finished as early as May this year. He's described that his goal would be ideally to get it out by May 4th, which is a clever little trick. He's not committed to being able to do that, but that is evidently the aim. So it's like, this could be coming out soon. And I will gladly watch it.
Does he actually have Ewan McGregor still?
Well, obviously he hasn't got Ewan McGregor working for him, but he's got the footage they made.
Sure.
I think the kinds of the deepfake stuff he's planning to do is only to replace certain action sequences that were clunky. I don't think they're going to have major acting dialogue moments where Ewan McGregor has to say something he didn't already say. I think they're going to cut what they have. And I think that's the thing that's sad about it is they had reasonable enough stuff.
Sure.
It wasn't bad from beginning to end. That's sort of what made it frustrating, is that there were moments of possible goodness trapped within a lot of fluff and garbage.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this is a great idea, because there was enough there to make something out of. So now someone's going to do that. But I'm excited, and evidently we're getting to our X marks the spot. Who's you?
Well, we might as well end right here before we find out who's you.
Faherty. Well, okay, did you want me to...
Farton? Declan's farting.
Who explains the gas in the room. Did you want me to cut before this? I wasn't...
No, you're fine.
I mean, we could, I suppose.
He looks like
something's wrong with his
someone
face.
Screwed a new head on him that's 3/4 of the, or that's only a 3/4 size. It's like just small enough to be like, that's the wrong size, bud. Look at his face.
We went
his head versus his body is like, yeah, I wanted a smaller head, and then I got this.
Well, I guess we didn't have to click this cutscene if we were just going to make fun of the man.
Have a giant head, and then I wanted to cut it down slightly. And
I went too far.
This reduction was, I don't know, extreme. No.
Well, I guess if we're going to talk over this cutscene, it wasn't much use starting it, was it?
Well,
are we in the second episode yet or not?
I think we should wait.
All right, fine. You're getting a look behind the scenes today. Speaking of which, his lip is twitching in an unnatural way.
Whose lip?
His! Our lips don't twitch, they just do that. They're mechanical lips. He's calling us lad. Maybe he is Irish. We can't hear his voice very well because the TV's turned down. This is a long cutscene! I don't... Who's Koss?
Still looking for Dr. Koss.
I have map markers, pal. You don't have to...
I don't care about
I don't have to ask. I know where they are. I've got a HUD.
I haven't...
You don't have a HUD, do you? Any idea who's behind this?
Any idea who's behind this?
It's the Chinese. It's always the Chinese. Never mind. He doesn't know. He can't confirm. I can neither confirm or deny that it's the Chinese.
That's when you to stop the other...
Well, there were threats early on.
Doctors have changed.
That he did.
Okay, can I get out of here? Thanks.
Gotcha. Just be ready. When you feel your GPL button.
When I feel what vibrate now?
when you vibrate.
When you start vibrating.
Okay, now if we're gonna end, do you want to end with a bang?
Yes.
End with a bang. End with a bang!